So let's talk about your beautiful brain. I do different topics and different videos on brains, but I don't know that I've ever done one on understanding all the brain waves, especially with the super exciting gamma wave. Okay, that's the really exciting one. So let's just start at the beginning. When you are in an everyday waking state, like hopefully you're in right now when you're watching this, or when you're, figuring out a spreadsheet or answering emails, you're in what's called a beta. Now, in this video, I'm not going to tell you how many hertz each of the brain waves are, because who needs to know that anyway? You can absolutely Google it or AI it and find out. It's very, very basic. It doesn't matter. Just understand that a beta brain wave is in your doing, you're talking, you're having a conversation, you're reading a book, whatever. Now, when people, which I kind of specialize in, are super stressed out, whether it's through something like ADHD or past trauma, which is the most common, or just our world, it's so busy and stressful, right? They can get into what's called a high beta. Regular beta, where we're just having a conversation and you're thinking or reading, is good. You have to have it to be in your conscious level. You couldn't like drive or learn something. Beta is a learning also. But when you get into high beta, it means your brain waves are going deet, 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 and not in a good way. Because when you're in high beta, your body, your adrenals are usually in fight or flight. You're pumping out cortisol and adrenaline, and it's, you can't catch your breath. You're in survival mode, you're fight or flight. This is what I find that most people who have challenges with manifestation are living inside fight or flight. It's a high beta brainwave. So the very first thing we have to do is to calm that brainwave down. And there's lots of techniques. This isn't the video that we're talking about that. I'm just giving you the overall on all of your brainwaves. So we've got high beta, not good. Waking beta, which is your average beta, which is fine. It's good. You have to have it. But when it comes to manifesting, next we have our alpha level. Now, I don't know if you're as old as I am, but back in the day, I was certified in 𝒍𝒊𝒂𝒂 mind control. And you can look it up, SILVA, 𝒍𝒊𝒂 mind control. And Mr. Silva was brilliant. He was a radio engineer. He worked on radios, which I love because now I'm a practitioner of radionics. Not really connected. Anyway, Jose Silva discovered that he could teach his children how to bring up their very low grades in school by talking to them in a hypnotic way as they were falling asleep. So as soon as I learned about this, I was already a hypnotherapist, but I learned about it and I had to get certified because I wanted to know, and it went even beyond what I learned in hypnotherapy school. But for you, understanding that alpha is relaxed. Alpha is the level that you are in when you're, not always, but often, when you're driving and going somewhere automatically and you don't even know how you got there. Hopefully you're focusing, but a lot of times people are driving if they're just kind of zoning out, especially if you're on a long road trip, you're just zoning out. You can be in an alpha. I'm not recommending that. When you're spacing out on a TV show and it's hard to get your attention, you're probably an alpha. When you're out in nature and you're just enjoying it, probably an alpha. After you wake up and have been awake for just a few minutes, you're probably an alpha. So alpha is also known as the learning state. Remember I said we're learning when we're in beta? It's been shown that when you're in the alpha level, that your brain is more receptive to learning because you don't have all your busy conscious thoughts popping in. In fact, I forget his name. The guy who created Learning Genius and Reading Genius, like he teaches speed reading, and that's his mechanism. I actually heard him speak once, and he actually has his clients, his customers, kind of get into this alpha level because when you're open, you're much more receptive to learn. So alpha is that relaxed state. Alpha is the level that most people are in when they're meditating, when they're praying. For hypnotherapy, it is usually the alpha level that hypnotherapists work with in hypnosis. It's very challenging to get people at a theta level, especially with this, high beta stress brain waves that our society's in right now. But it's ideal for the theta. So let's move to theta. Theta is the brain wave that is slow. And it goes like beta, high beta is like this, regular beta is like this, alpha is like this, theta is like this. We're not at delta yet. I'm sorry. We're at theta. Theta is the brain state that you are in when you are first born until you're 4 or 5 years old. 3 or 4, 4 or 5, in that range. You are a sponge. Now, really, really good hypnotherapist, really well-trained clinical hypnotherapist, that's what they're doing. When you hear that people use hypnotherapy to give birth or to have dental work without, people that can't have any kind of medication or don't want it, they're in a deep hypnotic trance that is theta brainwave related. Alpha, you're still awake enough to where if someone drilled in your tooth, you'd be like, ah! But theta, if you are in a theta brainwave, it's incredible what can happen in that brainwave. But the important thing for you is that when you're little as a child and you're in the theta brainwave, you are like a sponge. So, and you only know you and your connection to your mom or, whatever your caregiver is. So if someone yells at you, even if you hear someone yelling at each other, you internalize it, right? And so this is where a lot of our conditioning and programming comes in, because we're convinced that we must be bad or flawed. Theta brainwaves are when you're that threshold right before you're falling asleep. Like you're in theta and you start having, like, you may hear someone come in your room and talking to you, but they really didn't. You're in a deep trance state. Same thing when you first wake up and you're not really awake yet. Same thing, falling asleep, waking up. A lot of people tell you that that's alpha, but there's that really fine threshold. Theta is amazing for programming your brain. So finding hypnotherapy, recordings or practitioners that can take you into theta, really, really good. It's possible to take yourself into it, but I have found, and I've been doing this 30 years, I have found that you will absolutely fall asleep in theta. You just will, because you're just too much on the threshold. Now, if you've read any of the astral body books or astral travel, lucid dreaming books like by Robert Monroe and the Monroe Institute, that's kind of what they specialize in, is getting you there and working in that state. I will add too that for alpha waves, that is what we learn to do in our remote viewing when I trained to be a remote viewer. But in theta, you're in a much deeper trance-like state. And it takes a while to get there, especially if you are all jacked up with high beta brainwaves. You have to really relax your body and your brain and be right before the sleeping threshold. So that's theta. Theta is really good for reprogramming. Next, we have delta. Delta is the very slow waves, and delta is associated with deep sleep. Now, I'm not going to get into details about delta because we don't really use it in manifestation and in programming. Suffice it to say that if you don't have a good amount of your REM, rapid eye movement sleep, which it happens in cycles of, I think, for 10 minutes out of every hour, and I'm probably getting those numbers messed up, but it happens, you have this much REM sleep in this much period of time, and it's a cycle. If you miss that deep sleep, like say you're a new parent and you have an infant that wakes up every hour or whatever, this is why people are so, or if you have a sick child and you're up all night, if we miss out on the REM sleep that we so desperately need to survive and to function, I mean, you can die without enough sleep, right? I mean, it's weird, but think about it, and it's happened, right? You have to have sleep or you'll just pass out. But sometimes there is documentation that some people can die if they don't get enough sleep. So you have to get sleep, because all of the other brain states that we work with have to be well rested. So if you don't get enough sleep, and then you have a high stress job, and I've known people, I'm sure you have too over the years, that are like, yeah, I get 4 hours of sleep a night and my job is really stressed. And then they drop dead. I mean, they just do. Or they get a disease, or they have a heart attack, or God taps them on the shoulder and says, nope, you're getting out of commission. I am going to, cause this to happen, and you're just going to have to catch up on your sleep because we can't survive without it. Okay, so those are the main brain waves, but enter gamma stage left. What is gamma? Gamma is super exciting. Gamma, and I've mentioned it in a few of my books, but it's only this current book that I'm just finishing that I'm really talking about it a lot more. And it's because science hasn't really been able to know, like, where do we put this? It's faster than beta and higher than beta, but it's more meditatively deep than delta. So where do we put this? A gamma brainwave is, like I said, it's very fast and very high. But it's unlike beta, which is a very fast stress-induced state, brainwave state. Gamma is ecstasy-based. Gamma is being related, some of the things I read with the flow state. So I'm going to tell you 2 ways that I know of for people to get in gamma based on, the research up to date and my own opinion. So when someone is in the flow state, like, how Google and Facebook and some of these companies have ping pong tables and meditation booths and all this stuff, it's because it's been shown to help people get in the flow state if they're doing something fun that they enjoy and letting a problem stew in their brain. Now, I will tell you that I know Albert Einstein did, but specifically Thomas Edison used to hold little barbarian metal balls or lead balls in his hand with a pie pan underneath his hand, and he would take a light nap. And when he went too deep to sleep, they would hit the pan. Now, some people say he was in alpha. I think he was in theta, but it doesn't really matter. Once he got that information, once he woke up and was like, oh, that's the discovery. That's how I'll make the incandescent light bulb. And then his mind started going, that's gamma. So if you're a gardener or an artist, or you're trying to figure out a problem or whatever, and you're doing something creative, and all of a sudden time just passes. Like, for example, when I'm writing, I'll say, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to give myself 1 hour to write, because then I've got to go meet a client, right? And all of a sudden I'll look at the clock and I'm like, holy cow, where did that hour go? That's the flow state. And that's often associated with gamma. Not every single time, right? I don't have an EKG connected to my head, but you can tell when you're in gamma because everything is just easy and flows and feels so good. The other side of gamma, and I don't mean the other side, but another way that gamma has been, in fact, it's the way it was first documented, is it's a state that deep meditators find themselves in, which is why I initially said ecstasy. So when a meditator is in a very deep trance state, they're not in alpha, they're not in theta, they're certainly not asleep. Their brain waves register this thing called gamma. That's how it was discovered, because people in really deep meditation had this really weird brain wave, and they're like, where does this come in? And so it's associated with being in the flow and deep meditation and ecstasy. And I don't want to get, this is a PG channel, so I don't want to get X-rated or R-rated, but things like orgasms are related to gamma because you're just in that instantaneous, flow state. So gamma really is important when it comes to manifestation, because what our goal is when we medicreate, for example, or when you visualize, whatever you're doing, your goal is to relax your body and your brain and your breath so you are in a flow state. You're just in, and I don't mean gamma, but you're just in a relaxed alpha state. And then to use brain entrainment or frequencies or whatever, maybe go to a sound bath and get yourself really, really deep into the theta. And as you train yourself to stay aware, and a lot of times it's helpful when you have my medication recordings, because I always remind you, stay awake, pay attention. And then you bring up the feelings, the emotions, the elevated emotions of joy and excitement. Now you can be in a gamma state. So my opinion is that gamma is when you are in either an alpha or a theta state, imagining something with such strong emotions of love and gratitude that it goes right up to your pineal gland, and now you're in gamma. You're just like, it's bliss. And it releases the bliss molecule, which is called Oh gosh, scientists gave it a really long name. It's Anna da 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 da, but what it's really based on is Anananda from Sanskrit, Anananda, which is heaven. And that is associated with the gamma brainwaves. So there you have it in a nutshell. I hope you found this useful and interesting and worthy of more exploration. If you would like to talk about coaching and how I can help you reach this state, stay in this state, and manifest from this state, click on the link below and let's chat. Have a beautiful day.